Now we appear to be streaming live. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back, and let's chat about what is happening up in the stars above. Happy Friday the 13th to all of you. And as Pia was saying this morning, it is Happy Lucky Women's Day. You can tell this morning we have guests. We have Pia and Cullen with us again from the Pleiadian Earth Energy calendar and book. Thank you so much for joining me, the two of you.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Always fun.
And always an adventure, isn't it?
Yes.
We had our adventure this morning in an alternate universe where we were broadcasting somewhere. We don't know where, but we finally got it together and here we are. And today we have so much to talk about. I mean, literally the universe is just abuzz with a lot of different energies today. But primarily what I wanted to talk about today with you, Pia and Cullen, is your book about Sacred Retreat. I actually have the real name of it here, Sacred Retreat, Using Natural Cycles to Recharge Your Life. I believe you have a copy of the book there to show everybody. Because in that book, you talk a lot about, I love that cover too. I just love that the moons and how it evokes cycles and using those natural cycles, the planets, the moon, and our natural life cycles, the rhythms of nature. And it's so important in this concept of having lost our connection to this number 13. So I want to give over the show, the broadcast to you for a while here this morning and talk about the 13, what's sacred about it, what happened to it, and how is it that we can reconnect to these natural cycles.
Great. Well, I wanted to point out, since we were showing the front of the book, there's a little gold seal here that's obscure full title. That is the Nautilus Book Award, a gold award winner for Better Books for a Better World. So this book and the information that's in it is all about just what you said. How do we reconnect with nature? How do we bring forward a better world? And there is an entire chapter on here on Lucky Women's Day, which is 13, any 13th day of the month. The reason that is a Lucky Women's Day is because women typically have always had 13 menstrual cycles. We have 13 cycles of the moon every year around our planet in 365 days. And women knew to put these two things together as potent times for utilizing their natural power. And so the reason Friday the 13th has been named an unlucky day is because at some point along the way from our matriarchal culture, the patriarchy decided that women had too much power and they didn't like that. So they instituted that 13 was an unlucky number. You no longer see 13 on elevator floors. There's no 13th in a baker's dozen. It's just 12. Everything that has to do with 13 has been written out as unlucky, when it's actually the luckiest of numbers, not only for women, but for all those sensitive men out there also who have divine feminine energy within them.
Can I just,
I
just want to add something. This book, one would think, was written for women, but actually this book has information for men and women alike, or I should say women and men alike. There is so much information about how we have lost our connection with nature, how we have sped ourselves up with technology. So I just wanted to add, before Pia got too fully into it, that this is an enjoyable read and a really, really informative read for men as well as women.
Well, indeed, because this changeover didn't just affect women, it also affected men, effectively taking the divine feminine out of the picture and the sacredness of that other half of you, and, relegating it to the shadows or to, some superstition that, kind of takes the quality of the life, of culture, of society, and, kind of just like drops it. Like,
Yes.
Whoa, we don't need that half of ourselves anymore. Now, I'm sure that historically and evolutionarily, there was a right and perfect reason for all of that to happen. But I'm more interested now in how do we bring back that connection? Because I think it's really at the root of what's going on this planet.
Well, I'm going to tie it in with today's, the energy that we're in right now, in the calendar. Yesterday, we stepped into one listening energy right here. Pleiadian Earth energy system has 13 periods of energy rather than 7 days in a week. There's 13 days in a period, which the Maya called a trasena. Yesterday's energy is one listening. And it has a lot of gifts. Cullen can tell you some of the gifts, but what I want to tie it into the book is in the book, Sacred Retreat, there's a chapter on a return to the art of listening. The divine feminine is calling each of us to return to the art of listening. And we can lead the way by returning to the practice of withdrawing to listen during monthly cleanse if we are a woman, or choosing a special time if we are a man for listening more deeply. The portal to the spiritual realm is not as open at any other time, as long as when we are releasing what is no longer needed and listening for what comes next. With the rate of profound change that is occurring on our planet today, it has never been more important to slow down and listen before we act. So the idea that we can look at each one of these energies and utilize it for the whole time that we've got it and ask what are its gifts, what are the things that we can do, is the very process of returning back to the matriarchal system for all of us, men and women alike, to be united together in understanding our relationship to nature, because we are nature.
Exactly. And it's just so profound when I think about the disservice that we've done to ourselves, to the planet, to our progeny, to our evolution, even by cutting off that part of ourselves. Or maybe there was something magical there that would help us at this point in time reconnect with that in a powerful way and see where we've taken the planet to the brink of extinction, where we bring it back just by restoring something simple, and that is this divine feminine, or our connection to the more mystical and the magical, I think is what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You said that Cullen would talk to us about the listening, the day. Does that tie in here? Is this a good time to talk about that energy?
What I'll say to lead into that is, we've talked about on your show before and today how the 13-day period starts with one particular profound earth energy, and that sort of overlays the entire period. So you have a different energy, earth energy each day, but that listening energy will be undercurrent or overlighting, however you want to say it, for the entire 13 days. That aligns with each of us also has an overlighting energy that I call the evolutionary guidance energy. And that part of that energy will be a part of the person's personality. So Cullen happens to be blessed with listening energy as his evolutionary guidance energy.
Well, how
It's
perfect.
really a gift. So he can talk to you all about what that energy is. I'll tell you what it is in terms of generalities, and he can tell you how to take it to the highest vibration, which is what he has done personally. So the listening energy has a down, all the earth energies have a downside and a high side. The lower vibrational low side is a deep need for emotional or physical security. And boy, do we have that going on the planet of spades right now with everything that's going on politically, environmentally, all of it. So we're not going to dwell on that. We're going to go into what we all should do anyway, which is the higher end of the vibrational energy, which is what Cullen has been doing for his entire life. That is the energy that trusts that the universe can provide exactly what you need, that makes you be responsible and mature and make choices for the highest good of all. That is the highest end. Listening energy is one of the most mature and responsible energies on the planet. If you happen to be blessed with that energy, you can really make a difference in the world. Well, tell them all about it.
For me,
analyze it.
For me personally, this is a really important topic because my guiding influence is the earth energy is listening for me. And so the Mayans called that Akbal. And what Akbal means is going as deeply as possible into anything that helps us be able to listen truly to our intuition, to our deepest guidance. And that could be meditation. That could be simply being quiet. That could be anything that takes us into the void, where we're not concerned with what the mind is trying to tell us, but what we are actually all about, following our hearts. So listening is really, really an important thing for everyone, whether they have what Pia says I'm graced with or not. It's a time that anyone and everyone can simply slow down, simply begin to listen deeply, and answers will come, intuitions will develop. It's a great time to simply reorder our lives by stepping away from everything that we've been taught about. We have to be always progressing, always going forward, always being busy. The listening ability lets us step away from that, even if it's only momentary. If we simply stop talking and listen to another, instead of thinking about what are we going to say before they're even finished with what they're trying to tell us, we're often trying to say, well, maybe you should look at it like this, or maybe there's a different avenue, or this, or that. If we just quiet down and listen more thoroughly, we will have such a calm, serene energy around us that we then broadcast outward. So the listening element is just extremely important.
It's also a real good thing for deepening all relationships, because if you step into this period and practice, okay, listening, I need to learn how to listen better. No matter how good a listener you are, you can always learn to listen more quickly and better, more deeply, because currently when we listen about half of what's said, and then we're on to what we think or what else needs to be done. We don't get the full picture because we don't slow down enough to really do that. If you listen to a child and a child is telling you something and you go, yeah, that's right, I'll make you a sandwich in a minute, or go watch TV, you're missing everything that child is bringing to you, which may have an underlying theme of, I need some help, or I've got something exciting to share, or who knows what.
Or I just need to be listened to.
And then they get the message that you don't want to hear them, or that they're not important. I mean, unconsciously, that's the message.
Yes.
And the same thing with partnerships can slide pretty easily and quickly into, I know what you're going to say, instead of deeply listening to what is this person trying to tell me before I respond, because I've already got my preset program of what I think you're going to say to respond to it. We can break those patterns, and you wanted to know how we can get back into harmony with nature. This is one of the best ways to break some of the patterns we have.
Nature in itself is generally very quiet. I mean, there are birds singing, there are pine cones dropping, but in between those particular activities, nature is deeply quiet. And it's really interesting for Pia and I to be around people who generally live in cities. When they come out to be in nature, sometimes it makes them a little nervous because there's nothing going on, and they expect to hear a siren or a car crash or anything that's noisy.
Yeah.
And if we spend more time in nature, we automatically slow down. We automatically have the ability to be quiet, relaxed, and in a completely different, and this is going to sound funny, but I'm going to say it, mindset. I'm trying to get people to understand that we're supposed to let go of the mind when we slow down and when we're in nature, but the mind still wants to be in control. So it does change the actual mindset of what we're doing, what we're thinking, and what's going on with us when we slow down in nature.
Yeah. I am really lucky to live by some of the most beautiful forests and beautiful ocean scenes here, in Washington State. And I can tell you that when you go into a forest, you have that expectation you're going to hear a bunch of something, but the forests are quiet. And at best, what you're hearing maybe is the crunch of your own feet on the path, or you're hearing the water rushing over rocks, and occasionally birds flying through. But there is a very powerful silence. Even it's almost like the noise that you're hearing in the forest is so natural and is so soothing that you almost don't sense that. But then if you go into a city, right, when I come back home and there's the blaring lights or anything like that, it takes you out of that natural rhythm. I think we've built ourselves out of that rhythm.
Yes.
Yep. We
We
totally
agree.
agree. Just yesterday, we had to go to one of the major cities here in Cyprus where we live. And it's terribly busy. It's noisy, busy, chaotic. And we were there for hours because we had lots of things to do. When we drove home, we live in a natural place like you do.
Mhm.
We live in a pine forest with waterfalls, rivers and creeks around us.
Lots of birds singing.
And as soon as we got out of the car, Pia looked at me and said, "Listen, it's so quiet here." So we understand exactly what you just explained, Janet.
Yeah. And even I live right here along the water. And even when I'm down on the beach and you hear the sound of the waves, again, it can be loud, right? Especially like on a day today where the wind is whipping up everything. But it's a different kind of sound, a different kind of noise. You wear it differently than you do horns and cars and the people talking and lights and all of that. It's just so different.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Complex in our regular world and in the world we've come to know, and simplified in the forest or along the seashores, or even when you just can go within and be quiet, because we can recreate that within, I would imagine, right?
Absolutely. That's
Absolutely.
what this energy is all about, is
Yes.
teaching us how to recreate it from within. Because when we recreate it from within, as Cullen said earlier, it broadcasts out and it blesses everybody with that sense of calm and peace.
Yeah. It's interesting. Many people around the world meditate, and there are many different forms of meditation. And I can tell your audience personally from my life that I began meditating as a very young person. And I just felt that this was something that was so easy and so rewarding. And looking back, I've actually been meditating for over 50 years on an everyday basis. And
Wow.
it has literally saved my life. And I mean this sincerely, because each day when I meditate, I let go of all the things in my life. I let go of all the tension. I let go of all the chaos, and I simply lose myself. And I don't know where I go, but I know I'm somewhere not here in my normal waking state. And it refreshes me every day. It gives me a chance to stop and just be in the void. And I don't talk about meditation much, but in tonight's discussion or today's discussion, I think it fits in. Meditation can be really helpful for many people in many ways.
Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand with listening energy. And even though today isn't the, listening, we're talking about what is the overlighting energy, I think you call it. I often call it the umbrella energy for the 13-day period.
Perfect.
That is really teaching us as a part of the evolution or the spiral of consciousness here about that listening, about getting quiet, about going within.
There's a way to combine the umbrella or overlighting energy with the current energy as well. Today's
Great.
earth energy is planting. So if you've got an overlighting energy of listening, instead of just going to the store and planting whatever needs to be planted in seeds in a garden, you listen to what needs to grow, what is needed, what do I want to plant. Same thing with a creative project or anything that you're planting, not just a garden, but anything. If you stop and listen, what kind of things am I creating with my planting? My thoughts, my creative ideas, whatever it is what I'm bringing for the highest good of all? Am I listening to the need of the world? Am I making a difference? There's a way to blend those together. And you can do that with each earth energy of the whole 13-day period. Stop and ask, how am I listening to what this day asks of me?
That's so great. That's so great. So for those of you who are just joining us or who have joined us in progress this morning, we are talking with Pia Orleane and Cullen Baird Smith. They're taking us through the Pleiadian Earth energy, the overlighting energy of the week, which is one, listening, And we're also going to continue a conversation about the number 13. And for those of you who are tuning in for astrological information, I won't disappoint. When we're done with this discussion, I will go into some of the exciting astrological stuff of the day, Mars turning direct, hallelujah, and the new moon tomorrow as well, or tomorrow into Sunday in Scorpio. That ought to bring us some really interesting listening energy. I think it's a depth sort of new moon. So, Pia, let's go back to the number 13. Were you complete with the listening thing before we go back that
Yes.
way? Because I think our audience would really like to understand what happened to 13. What besides, the patriarchy taking over has happened, and the impacts that it's had on us. What are some of the most obvious, maybe the bigger things? Because I know there's a lot of the things that it's changed for us.
I think the biggest thing is the understanding of what the 13 energy brings. In the Pleiadian Earth energy system, each universal energy has a particular meaning, and they build one on top of the other. One is the energy of initiating or starting, and that builds all the way through the 12 days. And at 12 days, you reach a point of understanding. I understand. In Western culture, we've taken 12 as the end point. That's it, ready to start over again. Let's start over. We finished 12. In the Pleiadian Earth energy system, there is an urge to stop, pause, rest, take it in. The 13th energy is about integrating, because if you don't integrate everything that you've understood in the previous 13 days, you're just going to create another loop in the next cycle because you have not integrated what you learned.
I just totally got that. Like, it's like a cliffhanger, right? We get to the cliff and
Yes.
we think that's all there is, and we're hanging there without the completion point, that integration.
Yes.
Oh,
exactly.
wow.
That's the thing that I absolutely love about this system, is because it has a built-in pause that says it's just as powerful to pause, wait, integrate, be with this energy before you start again. And Western culture is all about push, push, push. What comes next? Forward movement. How fast can we go? And you can just ask anybody or just watch and see how people are sped up and spun out of this rhythm that's always pushing for quicker, quicker, more, faster, faster. So honoring the energy of 13 is really, really important. Personally, Cullen and I share the energy of 13 in our relationship. If you take his earth energy and my universal energy, his universal energy of 12, which is understanding, which goes so well with that listening we were talking about.
Yes, it does.
And by my energy of 1, universal energy, which is initiating, and put those two together, we make a completion of integration. We integrate everything. I start the initiating energy, he reaches the point of understanding, and together we integrate it to start again. So that's the way that works within relationships.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
It's like perfect that you would have come together and do the work that you're doing and teaching people about how the 13 brings us back into that completion, that pause before.
We think there's no accident there.
Yeah,
I'm sure there isn't. I'm sure there isn't. There are no accidents. So the 13 then, besides being a natural cycle close, how is it then, for example, things like the 12 disciples? How does it that we haven't got this idea that even in the Bible as a sacred text, that there were 12 disciples plus Jesus, that makes 13? How is it that we lost that even?
Well, because the Bible has been rewritten to make Christ different than what he was. Christ was all about unity. He was all about saying, what I do, I came here to teach you how to do. He didn't say, stand back and watch, I'm going to wave my magic wand.
No, he did not say that.
Watch, I'm teaching you. So it should have been 13 energies all along, not 12 plus 1 master. It should have been one who was teaching and showing, but making all the others raise their vibration, come up in their frequency of understanding what he was trying to help them do, so that they could go out in the world and then teach everybody else. So I think it was lost by putting Christ on a pedestal instead of honoring and respecting who he was and what he had to bring. I
Right.
think
They
this is,
wanted to see him as divine and not human, that somehow
Yes.
he was above us and not
Yeah.
with us.
Yes.
which,
No
by
matter
the
how
way,
many times he tried to say he is us.
that's exactly. Which, by the way, people often ask us if the Pleiadians are walking around us, and we say no, they won't, because they have done that with humanity so many times. And every time they've chosen to do that, humanity is, instead of learning what they teach, has said, oh, you must be gods. We're going to do what you tell us to do instead of learning. It's the same principle over and over and over again.
Because we're
So,
still looking outside of us for
yes,
Yeah,
answers instead of
precisely.
knowing that we have those. And,
yes.
Yes.
this is also, it shows up in the work that I do as an astrologer with the zodiac and 12 signs. And I was really thinking about this yesterday because we're getting to that time of year where now, as the precession of the equinoxes and the ecliptic plane moving and all of this, that we're really spending a part of this of the year with the sun moving through the foot of Ophiuchus, the 13th sign. And I
Yes.
can't help, and every time you talk to other astrologers about it, not everybody, but other astrologers, they're like, no, we have to stick, there's 12 zodiac signs, it has nothing to do with the number, blah, 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 blah. They have all these reasons. But I still can't help but feel like there is something really juicy about encompassing that 13th sign in
Ooh,
our astrology and moving us into the acknowledgement that, yeah, we're bringing this back. So,
yeah.
I mean, here pretty soon, the end of this month and into early December, the sun is actually moving not through Scorpio, but through Ophiuchus, the
Yes.
13th sign.
So Western astrology may be brought kicking and screaming into having an integration point through this 13th sign.
I think they
And
should. I'm certainly all for it. And I speak to it every year, right about this time. I start talking about this 13th sign. And you get a lot of ridicule from
Yeah.
other astrologers when they hear you
Yeah.
talk about that.
good for
And
you being a pioneer, Janet. Being to be the pioneer, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
well,
And one thing that our Pleiadian friends have told us all along is that all systems must transcend their own limitations, and that
mm,
each system will work for a period of time intelligently with the energy that it's made up of, that it's involved with. But as it develops, it must transcend the original template of what it was here to teach us. And I think what's happening now is normal astrology that's different than what Pia and I are involved with
right.
is transcending and is changing and moving. And I think more and more astrologers are going to be in agreement with what we're talking about today and not saying, nope, it has to be 12. That's it. We're stopping there. We're sticking with our story. I actually think more and more astrologers are beginning to say, maybe there's a larger picture. Maybe there's a larger meaning. And so I think what you're talking about talking to other astrologers, is a powerful, absolute transcending activity. And I'm really happy that you are willing to be talking about this so openly, because it's necessary.
Well, and then when you think about what that constellation or that 13th sign represents, healing, right? The power of love to heal, the power that we have within us, our own sovereign power, right? To decide what we do and how we heal and when we heal in conjunction with our divine self. It's kind of magical to think of that.
Absolutely.
It-
It completely is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really agree. I think that, we had, okay, maybe for the time period that we've just lived through, we needed that experience to be cut off from that level of magic or sacredness or mystical spirituality. But I think it's time now. I think it's demanding of us right now to bring this back or to reincorporate those parts of us that have been sort of chopped off. I feel chopped off, right?
Yes.
Well, we know a lot about the healing energy because that is my Cullen has the evolutionary guidance of listening. My evolutionary guidance is healing.
Ah,
So
Jaguar.
yes, so I have
Eesh.
that as my overlighting, and because I'm a 1, it is my general earth energy, and it is also Cullen's general earth energy.
Yes.
So we both know a lot about that healing you're talking about, and it is so necessary. And I couldn't agree with you more that healing is all about love and acceptance.
It is. And
Yes.
what's going on globally, worldwide right now, part of what's missing is healing, as you just mentioned, Janet. The healing element is absolutely necessary for us to clear up and clean up all of the things we've been involved with that had nothing to do with unity consciousness or nature. So the healing aspect is so appropriate right now with the energies, astronomical, astrological, everything that's going on is coming to a point where if we don't employ healing and listening right now, we're going to miss the boat. And we've missed the boat as a species. We've missed the boat too many times. It's time that we stand up.
I'm getting on the boat.
Yes, exactly.
I think all my listeners too would be like, I'm getting on that boat. I want that boat. You know, there's a certain amount of fatigue, I think, in the world that people are feeling in this polarized atmosphere and just the chaos. And I mean, from everything, not even just the virus or here in the US, the election, but like the whole world seems so off, so fatigued, so ready to be like done with this old energy and ready. But I don't know that a lot of people could put words to it. So I think that's why what you do, what I do, and what other people out there are doing to speak to this regeneration of the more mystical and the more divine is so important. So important.
It's vitally important at this time. Yes.
Yeah. So, Pia, where is your book available? Because I'm sure people could get it on Amazon, but I know what happens when people buy things on Amazon. You get cut out of that figure. So do you have it available on your website?
But actually, you can get it from any bookseller.
Any bookseller.
Amazon does have it, but you're quite right. They do not honor authors. So if you can buy it from someone other than that, that would be great. But all you have to do is order it by title and by author, and anyone any bookseller can get it for you. Book Depository is a really good one. You can go online if you want to do it online. Book Depository is probably the quickest and easiest, but there's some others also, and local bookstores, Barnes and Noble.
If they have bookstores around them anymore.
They do online. They've moved into online.
Yeah.
But you can do it online with people. You don't have to physically go out and purchase the book.
Right. So, and you don't have to go to Amazon to get it. You can go to Barnes and Noble or Book Depository, or I'm sure there are others out there. Anything else you want to tell us about what goes on in that book? Or anything else you want to share with us?
The book, I'll go through the chapters, which there are 13 of them. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
13 chapters. The first one talks about the cyclic nature of life, and it talks about how we have so many oscillating variables within each of us as human beings that oscillate all the time, keeping us continually in a motion of change, because life is about change. And unlike the Western culture, which says we have to go on progress, but we have to build it on what we know, that's pretty rigid thinking, and it doesn't allow creative change to occur. So this talks about the cycles and patterns that are natural in nature and that we are a part of, and how we can use them creatively to become more of who we really are. The second chapter is on biology and healing, and it talks about the biological processes that make us who we are, so we can look at our physicality and our what we can do physically to heal things that are out of balance. The third chapter is one of my favorites. It talks about when spirituality was pushed out by religion. And that is the place that describes how the number 13 was lost. And it goes into great detail about what happened, why, and all the different parameters that cascaded down like dominoes as the patriarchy decided to take over rather than contributing to the matriarchy. a lot of people think that the matriarchy means women ruled everything, but it actually doesn't, because the matriarchy held men in equal esteem. The matriarchy had feminine principles of the divine feminine governing everything, but men were held as equals, whereas the patriarchy has made it very clear that women are not equal. The fourth chapter is about blood mysteries, and it talks about all kinds of blood mysteries that have been sort of taboo to speak about, but that bear understanding about who we are and how we have psychologically arrived where we are. The fifth chapter is about clearing, cleansing, and sexuality, and it's about getting rid of, instead of holding on to any kind of patterns or things that are keeping us blocked. It's not only about women's menstrual cleanse, but it's also about emotional cleanse. It's about cleansing in relationship when you've got toxic stuff going on. The fifth chapter is about the power of words. And that chapter is all about pay attention to what you say. For instance, a lot of people say, well, I think I'll just kill two birds with one stone. Think about that. Not the meaning of, oh, I'm going to get something done quicker and easier, but think about what that saying came from, killing in order to achieve something, and begin to revamp your language to start saying things a little bit better. The seventh chapter we've already talked about is deep listening. The eighth chapter is relationships, and it's all about how to have a balanced and respectful and unconditionally loving relationship that's full of passion and sharing, and what to do to get over problems if you have problems in relationship. The ninth chapter is about the importance of dreaming or visions if you have visions instead of dreams. The 10th chapter is about creativity and how to incorporate more creativity into your life. The 11th is about the two areas that men and women go through when we stop being reproductive, the menopausal cycle and the andropausal cycle. So it discusses both the male and the female aspect and what we can do with the power that comes at that time instead of seeing it as a loss. The 12th chapter is the water that we are, and it talks about the fact that we are 70 to 90% water, depending on our makeup, our age, all kinds of things, but beginning to look at water a little differently and recognizing that we are water, which is also one of Lartma's favorite concepts. Wow. They teach that we communicate through water, not through telepathically through the air, not through any other way, but actually our water is resonant, which is very much similar to the work of
Emoto.
Emoto, thank
you.
Yeah. So it talks about how the water helps us communicate and be stronger and connect more easily.
I love that. I just love that.
Final chapter, the 13th, is welcoming the divine feminine in all of us and trying to step back into honoring the balance between the divine masculine and the divine feminine, which exists in all of us.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I did not get to that chapter. I can't wait to get to that chapter. Are you open to answering some questions for people?
Sure.
They're starting to roll in here. First of all, Kathleen would like to know the name of the book again. And Kathleen, that is Sacred Retreat, Using Natural Cycles to Recharge Your Life. Pia, maybe you could just show the book again if you have it sitting there. It's got the lovely picture of the moon and the different moon cycles around it. Lovely, lovely. And a seal of approval, of quality. Okay, Asa says, let's see, Christine Buckingham is asking if Ophiuchus, the serpent handler, is maybe about Kundalini energy. Definitely that is a part of it. There's a lot of mythology that we could go into, and I didn't mean to open up that door here today, but it's a great door to open up maybe in another broadcast where we can talk about the symbolic meaning of the healer, the serpent. As we all have talked about before, the serpent shedding its skin and how that symbolizes our letting go, our releasing, our evolving, our transformation. So we could do a whole week worth of talking just about that sign and that symbol. But I also see in that symbol our reluctance to incorporate it. And why would that be? What is at risk if we heal, right? I think that is probably the bigger question. Not that what happened in our history, but what would happen if, we healed all of the divides? What would happen if we stopped being in division and polarization and started loving one another? What would that mean? And I had an interesting interaction one time years ago, back in 2011. I did a sort of mini tour of the West Coast talking about the Mayan calendar and how I was trying to disrupt the idea that when the Mayan calendar ended, life ended and all of that, because people were just so caught up in that. And that day of 2012, which really was a little bit arbitrary in terms of the cycle and all of that. And that the Mayan calendar ending wasn't our life's ending and things like that. So, and I was in Vancouver, Washington, talking to a group, and this man goes, well, unity's all great, but that means I'm losing myself or my individuality. And that startled me. It startled me that somebody would have that sort of idea. And then I recognized that maybe there's the fear there that somehow unity requires our losing ourselves. And I don't know, that was just shocking to me because I see it as me adding my individuality to a tapestry, to making it a whole. So do you guys see it sort of that way too, that there's maybe this fear that we have of that?
Absolutely. It's like a quilt that's put together with individual pieces, but the quilt's not beautiful without all of the pieces there.
It leaves a big hole. So I think that may be something for us to speak to as well when we're talking to people about a return to unity, to a more loving, kind nation or world or globe. We can't even enter, I think, into our brotherhood, sisterhood with other star nations until we can overcome this piece in our own selves. And talking about how it's not our losing ourselves, we're gaining. We're gaining. So I try to bring that message. I try to bring that message in. Let's see, any other questions? I've got the two there. So nobody has questions? I can't believe that one. Are you all starstruck today? I know I was gobsmacked this morning, it seemed like. I had too much going on. Let's see, J-Lo, the 4th chapter, will you say it can be kind of like finding out about our lineage? 4th chapter, what was the 4th chapter again?
Maybe biology. Let's see. 4th chapter, blood mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly could have some answers in there for people looking at lineage, but that's not the major focus of the book. It's more at looking about how we arrived where we are today through the myths that we believed in and then put aside, and the ones that went subservient underneath, that we don't consciously retain an awareness of, and yet they're still present. For instance, calling the menstrual cycle the curse. That's something that was done at a certain period of time because people believed it. And so now we know that it isn't a curse. Obviously, it is what brings forth life if you want to have a child. And yet that name still sticks. So the blood mysteries goes through that. It also talks about how there were men in Papua New Guinea who were so jealous of the women giving birth because they believed that the god should give forth birth, and the women were giving forth birth and they couldn't figure it out. So they had a ceremony where they actually slit the end of their penis and would drip blood into a bowl so that they could be part of a creative process. So there are lots and lots of stories in there about the rituals humanity has gone through and how some of the belief systems still linger in our psyche.
Yeah. And then they come out to haunt us periodically.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So it's better if we look at them and see what they are so we can say, this doesn't make sense, and move beyond it.
I'm looking like I'm looking away from you all, and it's not. I'm just looking at the different comments people are making so I can share that with you. Let's see here. Kathleen says, I borrowed a copy of Sacred Retreat from our public library. Awesome. Then Tom says, I'm good friends with Dr. Emoto's former PA. I'm not sure what that means. We send pray Ho'opono to water. We're sorry, water. Forgive us, water. Thank you, water. We love you, water. I love that. Then let's see, other questions. Asa, why are the women goddess and us guys just brothers? Oh, that's just a comment between the two of them, I'm thinking. Any other questions?
Can I address that, Janet?
Yes, you may.
I don't consider that women are goddesses unless we also hold that men are gods. We are all divine. There's no thing as the women are goddesses. That's part of the New Age women's movement that's trying to put women back in the balance of the equation, because women were taken out for so many centuries. Women have been taken out of the mix, and they've been struggling to come back into the mix, and the pendulum has swung way too far to the other extreme. So now they're saying, I'm a goddess, I'm a goddess. Well, that's true, but you can't hold out that you're a goddess if you do not see the male counterpart as a god. We are sisters.
And I think we are coming back that way. Don't you think sometimes we swing like from one end way over to the other, but then that swing naturally brings us back into some kind of.
I think that's where we are now, is coming back into the center, the heart of it, the balance, where we do respect each other as brother, sister, goddess, God. But that's an important point.
It's not balanced. If it's one extreme or another, there's no balance in the middle.
Exactly.
And what we're trying to achieve is a balance between the divine feminine and the divine masculine, so that we can create equality and unity. So that absolute back and forth pendulum extreme really doesn't help unless we learn that it brings us back into the middle of balance.
Exactly. We have to honor it all.
Yes.
Because otherwise you're leaving a part out. And the drastic state of our world at the moment, I think, is a reflection of that, having turned our back on that divine feminine, perhaps, or not being in balance in the way that we treat one another. And we're not really talking about men and women, by the way. We're talking about energies.
Yes.
Because we all have both of those energies within us, masculine and the feminine. So that's the natural order of life, right? So it just so happens women give birth, but we can't give birth if we don't have men, giving half of the DNA to be able to start that conception. So you can't have one without the other. I think that's a big, huge lesson that everybody needs to understand as time goes on here. Nor do we want to swing from a patriarchy all the way over back to a matriarchy, because then again, the tendency for us on this planet at this time is to make that a dividing line, to make that other and, us versus them kind of situation. Again, that isn't healthy. We certainly don't need that. But we do have to bring back and honor the parts of ourselves, I think, that we've left behind. We're trying, we're attempting to get there.
Well, the attributes of the divine feminine and the attributes of the divine masculine are equally important. So melding them together and creating a better whole is really the answer.
Yeah. What I think is funny too, in symbolic sort of way, is when you look at the ecliptic plane, or the signs that are on the ecliptic plane, or the constellations, I guess. What we see right now is the sun having just sort of caught the tip of Ophiuchus's foot, right? It's like dipping our toe into the water. And every year when we go through this, I think about this. Okay, are we ever going to get to the full on, let's get to the knee. Let's get to the whole thing, right? Because I think it's funny that the way that constellation is aligned, we'll really only ever really see just this smaller part of it. So we're dipping our toe, if you will, into this new idea, into this new way of being. And it's pretty extraordinary when you think about it. If we could get out of the negativity of the times we're in and see, just how extraordinary it is where we are, I think we would all be a lot happier. All right. Anything else that you want to share with us before I go on to astrology for the day and the weekend?
Well, please do.
We'd love to hear from you now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I love you guys. I can't wait to this time of the month so that we can chat. So for the moment, I'm going to switch over to astrology. Although if you have questions, I can still see Ace's comments coming to me. So I'll be happy to translate those over to Pia and Cullen. But I can't leave you today without talking about some of the most important information that will get you through the weekend. Of course, today is the ending. Actually, at 8:19 this morning, the moon broke her transit through Libra, and she has now entered Scorpio. So we are now in the window of the new moon, which occurs on the West Coast. Actually, the West Coast, most of the time zones here in the US will experience the new moon on Saturday. Those of you on the East Coast and Europe and further east that direction, you'll experience this on Sunday. So we have that very powerful new moon. But before we get there, the best news of the day, I could feel it this morning when I got up even, is that Mars is finally moving out of that retrograde phase where he has been since September 9th. And will station, that means slow down almost from our perspective here. It's not that he's actually not moving, but he slows down to a crawl and begins to change direction. And that will happen at 4:13 p.m. this afternoon. But literally, he's just hanging there for the whole of the day. Now, slowly but surely, the energy will begin to pick up, right? It gains speed. It's not like all of a sudden today things are better and we should just start and go running, forgetting, the forest, the quiet, the listening part of it all. Maybe, to use Cullen's example, today is a really good day. And maybe even for the next 12 days, or it would be 11 days now, we should maybe sit in listening to what it is that Mars is bringing us now that he is moving forward. What's been stalled in your life? What feels like a natural ending that has happened or is in the process of happening? Because at the same time, there's a natural opening moving you in a different direction, perhaps. We may have a new direction that we want to move in, right? Maybe it's that we've re-examined our desires, the things that we thought we wanted, and that has changed. Maybe we're releasing something, and maybe that makes room for something more. So while we're reimagining ourselves in the retrograde Mars, now we have the opportunity to recreate ourselves as Mars begins to move forward. But that's going to take time. Now, today we also have Mercury, the planet that represents our mind and our communication, coming into a sort of tense relationship with Neptune, which means today's best not to force anything, right? Your mind isn't clear. You don't really know what you're really thinking about. It's a lot of uncertainty on a day like today. So your thinking isn't clear yet on what to do. So what should you do? Likely listen. Go inward, slow it down, right? Don't make any big moves. Today might not be the best day for that. Now, besides the point that we're in the dark of the moon, right? So the new moon shows us when it's the appropriate time on Earth anyway, for us to begin something new. And that doesn't happen until 9:08 p.m. tomorrow night for those of us on the West Coast. Let's see, midnight 08 if you are on the East Coast, the hours in between if you're somewhere else here in the US. And that occurs at 23 degrees of Scorpio. Now, Scorpio as the energy of the new moon, I've got to watch the time here because got to leave here on time this morning. Scorpio new moon is all about power and our empowering ourselves. There is often a political ploy that goes on during Scorpio energy. There's psychology involved with Scorpio energy. There are secrets exposed in Scorpio energy, but it is the exposing of those secrets, of those things that lie hidden, that empower us to move forward or to do something about whatever it is that the secret holds for us. This is a sign of transcendence. Remember the whole idea of Scorpio. It's the one sign that has the three different animal totems, where we've got the scorpion in the lowest extreme. Then we have the possibility of rising to the eagle, which is how I think I ended up on seeing energy yesterday instead of listening energy, is I got caught up with the eagle and the idea of that elevating to, be able to see the bigger picture. So we're elevating perhaps through the eagle, our perspective, seeing it from a higher perspective, being able to see both the details and the bigger picture. And then finally, the highest expression of the scorpionic energy is the phoenix, rising from the ashes and transforming, becoming something new, and allowing that change and that transformation to take place. Often crises are a part of the Scorpio experience. Why? Because they're the best ones in a crisis. If you know a Scorpio in your life, follow them in a crisis because they're going to know what to do. But there is some off energy to that because sometimes the crisis is a part of our taking risks that perhaps we shouldn't have taken yet. We can have obsession and compulsion sort of issues that arise. These are maybe the things that we want to work through in the new moon. Intensity. It's a very passionate sign. And so we may have intense encounters with people that elevate our thinking in some way or rock our world. I don't want you to forget that Mars is still sitting at the gate 51 in your human design template, which tells you that we are still in an initiation process. We are still being awakened, and sometimes it takes shock to awaken us. But what are we awakened to? Remember, the other side is universal love. So we're being awakened to being more heart-centered and more in our love for one another than in our issues that we have with one another. Scorpio helps that intensity along as we move forward. Scorpio, the sign of self-mastery. And in that we have self-discipline, commitment to both ourselves and to the world, to our community, to our loved ones, to create a better pathway. It is the sign that represents bonding. So we have everything that brings us together or bonds us together as humans, including sex, soulmate issues, deep emotional connections. I love that you said it's the water that draws us, that brings us together. That's so profound when I think about that. It's not telepathy through the air, it's our water intermingling. And that's so profound. Financial partnerships are also a part of Scorpio energy, loans, taxes, credits, inheritances, contracts for business, and agreements that we make with one another. And of course, the more negative expression, because we always have that as a part of the experience, as Pia told us earlier, we have the more negative and we have the positive. We can't ignore the negative, which is the misuse of power, right? That happens a lot in our world. It is what we are struggling with in the United States. It's, I'm sure other countries struggling with this idea of this misuse of power. And part of that is revenge. Part of that is suspicion and jealousy and power struggles, destruction urges. So we need to work with that shadowy part of ourselves during this new moon, as well as the more empowered parts of ourselves. So new moon connections. There are some very interesting connections that this new moon is making. And in that is always the juiciness, I think, like how are all those planets playing together? And first off, the sun and the moon are coming into a sextile, a positive relationship between Pluto, Jupiter, Pallas Athena in Capricorn, and the sun moon in Scorpio. And here we have some inherent earth wisdom, right? It's inherent earth wisdom that is about triumphing over our challenges. So really the new moon, I'm getting chills, woohoo, as I say that, because literally we have faced adversity, we have faced challenges, and we always rise to that. The best of humanity comes forth often out of those crises. And this shows us in a positive way how we can rise up with love and ground that energy into the planet during this period of time. It is also that this new moon is happening in the shadow of Jupiter and Pluto's conjunction from yesterday. That has signaled a time of the change to more equality, equal laws, and the application of things leveling the play field so we all have an opportunity to shine. And it's, are we ready to rise again? Like the phoenix, right? From the ashes of the immolation, are we ready to rise up and be our true selves? That's a part of this moon. As well, the moon is in an inconjunct to Eris, the goddess of discord. So an inconjunct, that's a tension-filled sort of relationship. So she's rubbing up against us in a way. She's creating sort of the you know how you rub sticks together to get a spark to start a fire? Well, she's creating that spark, right? That rubbing together in order to change energies up. So the struggle to break free, to begin anew, to start in a more inclusive world is coming through the tensions and the struggles that Eris and the sun moon connection are bringing to us. Don't forget the sun and the moon and are at this time at the gate 43, the gate of insight. So again, I think that fits really beautifully with the listening energy of our overlighting energy for this 13-day period, as it takes us inward, right? It takes us to what our instinctual self is telling us when we're quiet and we hear what it is that we do next. Maybe it is that we don't do anything. Maybe we are waiting, right? So that's a great energy for this. And likely one of the more interesting, let's say, transits during the same period of time as the new moon is Mercury's opposition to Uranus. Mercury rules the lower mind. So the mind that we think of, right? Our data recall, comparing and contrasting, critically thinking, all of that. Uranus takes us to the next level, right? It's where we think outside of the box, where we are tasked with maybe some kind of revelation or aha energy that brings us an epiphany or something, a new way of doing things. With them in an opposition, we have this opposition, which is a sort of tug of war between the lower mind and the thoughts and the stinking thinking, the old mindset, and the other one, which is what more is possible? What more is possible if I elevate my thinking? So we may be receiving shocking news. We may see some new revolutionary thinking patterns emerging in the world, being seeded sort of today with two planting energy. What's being seeded? What's ready to be bursting forth here in the next months as we move forward. And what I would say about that is expect perspective shifts, perspective, right? Rising up to the highest high of the trees here and looking out at the world, seeing both the details and the bigger picture. And lastly, this morning, I wanted to read for you from my Dane Rudhyar book, right? The Astrological Mandala, The Cycle of Transformations. And sometimes I find the language that he uses in these books is very stilted. But I think that the degree for this particular moon is very clear. So I want to read that to you in closing today. So we are at Scorpio 2315, which translates to 24 degrees in the book, if you happen to have his book. After having heard an inspired individual deliver his Sermon on the Mount, crowds are returning home. The keynote then is the need to incorporate inspiring experiences and teachings into everyday living astrology. That's why I named my business Living Astrology. Today, we hear a great deal about peak experiences. The great problem facing everyone who has had such experiences is how to assimilate what has been felt, seen, or heard, and how to let it transform his everyday consciousness and behavior. If this is not done, the experience may turn confusing or toxic and perhaps destructive of the integrity of the person. This symbol, as usual, suggests to us what has to be done or how to do it. The return home from the high mountain or from the upper chamber of the consciousness may lead to a sense of oppression by the normal realities of existence, or else the soul that has been illuminated may retain enough of that light to transfigure every daily situation. This is the great challenge to transformation. So this new moon sets the stage for a powerful transformation. Wow. Wow. That's all I could say is wow. So I did that all in a fairly good timing. If you all have questions, please send them to me by email. If you have questions for Pia or Cullen, I'm sure they would gracefully answer them as well. Pia, I forgot your email off the top. Is it Pia Orleane at Gmail? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Pia, ORLEANE at gmail.com. Thank you so much, you guys, for being here this morning. Thank all of you for being here and listening. Thank you, Asa, for being my little angel in the background. Any last thoughts you want to share with us before we go?
Don't think we have anything except peace in our hearts and joy in our step today for this time we spent with you.
And I just want to say one very quick thing. Mm-hmm. I love and respect your astrological perspectives, your understanding and your way of explaining the highest and best astrological understandings of what's going on are so important today. So I have absolute respect and love for what you're doing and the way you do it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. If I get out of my own way, usually I can bring in some pretty powerful stuff. Sometimes I'm in my own way. Other times I'm in another universe. That happened yesterday. What can I say? All right, everybody, please have a wonderful weekend. It is your choice after all. Blessings to all of you. See you on Monday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Bye for now.